All right. Cody here with Creation Outdoors, along with
Olivia.
Okay. And we're going to talk about Total Archery Challenge today. So registration already is taking place. It took place a couple months ago, but the events are just getting started. And so we wanted to jump on and just share our experience about our first Total Archery Challenge events that we shot last year, which were a blast. And then we wanted to go through a couple things that maybe might be worth knowing, especially for a beginner going into some of these different events. And so last year we shot 2 different events, 2 days each.
Yep.
And so we started in Big Sky, Montana, and we shot the Loophole course the first day, which is the easiest course, and then we shot the Yeti course the second day. And then we went to Snowbasin in Utah, which was rescheduled due to everything last year. But again, we shot the Loophole. No. In Snowbasin, we shot the Yeti course the first day, and then we shot the Knock-On course the second day, which was difficult. But overall, we had a really great time, and so we just wanted to kind of walk through our experience, and then moving forward, maybe give some helpful tips. And so the first thing that I want to talk about, or that we want to talk about, is what to expect at a Total Archery Challenge event. And so, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
What to expect, like the day of?
Yes. What to expect the day of the shoot.
Yeah, so we, obviously, like he mentioned before, we went last year, so with everything, the precautions that were going on, they required masks in the registration area, but we got to the registration area in the morning and got our time. I mean, we had registered for certain times, and so got our bands to get on the ski lift, and then the ski lift takes you up to the start of all 4 courses. Kind of start up there, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
so at the bottom there's a whole bunch of booths that are there, and so you can check out these booths and buy breakfast or something oftentimes.
Yep.
Or buy arrows if you didn't show up with arrows.
Yeah, so if you get there early or before your knock time, there's definitely kind of things to see and things to do down there.
Yep.
Which we had early knock times all 4 days, and so we kind of spent time after we shot walking around the booths and stuff, but there's definitely time to do it in the morning.
Yeah, so we show up, and then there's a trailer for registration. And so you walk up to the registration trailer. As she mentioned, you get this little band, which you actually put on your bow.
That's right, yep.
They give you a free t-shirt, as you can see. And there is also an area that you can practice. And so they have some targets set up, and you can kind of step up to the line and practice. Essentially, everyone steps up to the line, shoots a couple arrows, and then there's retrieve, and then during the retrieve, people step out and new people step in. And so you can do that before, just to make sure everything's okay.
Yep.
And then they scan your barcode, and then you ride the chairlift or ski lift up to the top of the mountain, and that's where all of the courses start, and you'll follow the signs to the start of the course that you signed up for.
Correct. Yeah, so some of them, there's a little bit of hiking involved to even the start.
Yeah.
But then once you're at the start, they all work their way, all the targets work their way back down to kind of home base. So no matter what course you're shooting, it's set up and marked so that you end back at the registration camp.
Yes.
Essentially, yeah.
Yep. So each course, and so there's generally 4 or 5 courses kind of per location. And they vary based on difficulty and so on and so forth, and you can look into all that. Again, we shot the Loophole and Yeti courses, which have a tendency to be a little bit easier. But each course has 25 targets, and again, you hike from target to target, and there's numbers and flags that will guide you along the path to each target.
Yep.
And about halfway down, there's actually a water station as well, so you can refill a water bottle if it's warm and you've drank a lot.
Right.
And so that's generally what to expect on the day of. Now, if you have a morning knock time, they call it, or if your starting time is in the morning, there's kind of free shooting in the afternoon. So you can go back up in the afternoon and shoot a different course down if you'd like to. So you can do 2 courses a day.
Even if you're not registered for them.
Yes, even if you're not registered.
So all this is assuming that you're pre-registered.
Yes.
But you can show up the day of, correct?
Yeah, so often...
And at least go in the afternoon.
Yeah, oftentimes they'll let you go out in the afternoon if you show up to the event without having registered. Now that could vary, and don't take my word on it. I'm not going to be liable for anything. But oftentimes they'll let you out on different courses in the afternoon. You still have to pay.
Yeah, you'd have to pay the registration fee. But you can do that the day of if you missed out on the registration when it opened.
Yeah.
Which this year went a little bit smoother than years past, as we understand it.
Yes. Okay, so that's generally what to expect, kind of on just the overarching view of what to expect going through the course and what a total archery challenge is like.
Yep.
So the next thing we want to talk about here is what to bring for the course. And the first day we brought a lot of stuff that we didn't actually need, and so we ended up...
And forgot things that we did need.
Yeah.
So we were... learn from our mistakes. We kind of were over-prepared and under-prepared at the same time on the first day.
Yeah, so just some basics. It's important to bring maybe a layer or two of clothing in a backpack. So you're going to want to probably carry some sort of backpack or pack. And there...
a regular size backpack.
Yeah, you don't need anything
Nothing
huge.
too small, and it doesn't have to be super big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So bring a couple layers if need be, maybe a rain jacket, depending on the forecast. That's up to you. Remember, it's always going to be a little bit cooler and windier at the top than it is at the bottom.
Yep.
And that was very true for us for all of the
all
shoots.
4 courses, I think.
So bring some clothes, bring a rain jacket, bring a water bottle. Again, you can fill that up halfway down.
Yep.
But have that full to start with, and then maybe some snacks for the course. We brought some trail mix and protein bars that were helpful because these things can kind of take, between 2 to 3 hours,
Right.
maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on waiting per course. And so it's important to have a snack just so that, you're not running on empty, especially if it's hot and you have to do a little bit longer hiking for the course that you're on. And so those are some basics to bring. In terms of your gear, I think the most important thing to bring probably is a rangefinder.
Yes.
Had we not have a rangefinder, we would have been completely lost, and we would have lost many, many, many arrows.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of an essential for the event. So you really don't have to have a fancy setup or tons of equipment, but I would say that's one thing that definitely is in my head considered an essential to do the event and to enjoy it. I mean, because you can guess, but like you said, you're going to lose a lot of arrows that way. It's going to be a lot less enjoyable. So yeah, I would say that's like number one thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have one, get one and practice with it.
Yeah, we have a relatively cheap rangefinder that we use.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right. I'll put that in the description below, but it's not anything fancy, but it does the job. They don't have the ranges posted for each shot.
Correct.
And so a rangefinder is pretty well necessary.
Yeah.
Now at each shot, if it's out of your range, you can actually feel free to step up and shoot at a closer range.
Yeah,
that's totally fine for a lot of the shots.
Yeah, because you're kind of on your own. And the way it's set up, there is typically clearance in front of it or kind of around the initial cone, so you can kind of adjust as needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and same goes like left to right too. There was a couple of them. I don't know if any of them stayed in the final videos, but there's a couple of them where I took a step kind of one way or the other because a lot of times you were shooting through a really narrow range or a really narrow window, and just my confidence level. I'm a fairly beginner archer, and so you can feel free to adjust to your skill and confidence level too.
Yeah. So a rangefinder.
Yeah, that was kind of off topic.
Definitely a necessity. Speaking of arrows, which we kind of talked about earlier, I would say it depends on your proficiency a little bit, but for some of the easier courses, for like the Leupold course where it's generally shorter ranges, I would say minimum of 6 arrows. But I would say probably it's good to just start out the day for any course with a dozen arrows. You're going to lose some, you're going to break some, and you don't want to end up having to hike halfway down without taking any shots because you lost arrows.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Sunglasses maybe are important, and sunscreen. Melanoma is no joke, folks, and so bring some sunscreen too, because if it's a sunny day and a hot day,
Yeah,
that can sneak up on you, especially when it's a little bit cooler and windy.
Right. I mean, the Montana and Utah ones were the dead of summer. But if you're doing some of the earlier and like spring and a little bit later ones too, it's, still important.
Yeah.
Still gonna be sunny.
Yep. And I would say the other thing to bring is a good pair of shoes or boots. Especially when we were in Utah, the terrain was pretty rocky and steep. And so you're not going to want to go out there with tennis shoes or flip-flops. At a minimum, a decent pair of maybe trail running shoes would do it. But I think general hiking boots, or if you're working on breaking in boots for your fall hunts, that'd be a great way to do it as well. But a pretty solid, pretty good pair of shoes or boots, I would say, is a necessity.
Yeah. Again, doesn't have to be anything fancy or crazy expensive, but just quality something. Because while it's an archery event, there's legit hiking in it.
Yeah. So each of the courses that we did was over 2 or 3 miles, up to about 5-ish.
And again, this is these locations.
Yep.
So if you're doing one in the Midwest or on the East Coast, it might be a little different as well.
But there is elevation changes. You're walking down ski hills, which can be pretty steep sometimes, and so just bring some shoes.
Yeah.
that are okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else you'd suggest to bring?
I don't think so. I think that all covered it. Like the backpack is definitely helpful to keep even your extra arrows in.
You can bring a pair of binoculars if you want to, but I think overall a rangefinder in terms of optics is a necessity, and everything else you can probably do without. So we also want to talk about how to prepare, or at least how we prepared for these Total Archery Challenge events. So we did some of the easier courses besides for the knock-on course, but there was still a variety of ranges and angles that we shot. And so practicing some angles if you can, elevation changes, whether that's from a tree stand or a tower, can be important. But we practiced, we tried to practice 3 times a day, at least like 20 arrows per time.
3 times a week.
Yes, 3 times a week.
We weren't that serious.
Yeah. 3 times a week. It's not a serious event. It's for fun. And so you can go in and people do it without having practiced at all. But we tried to be prepared.
People take their kids. Like there was little kids on the courses too. So
right.
That's fun.
And as we mentioned, you can step up in range if you're uncomfortable shooting at a specific range.
Yeah.
So we tried to do 3 times per week, shooting out to maybe like 60 yards, just so that we felt comfortable at that distance. But we could also shoot a lot shorter distances, and we can move up for the shots. Again, that was just what we did and how we prepared, and we made sure that our bubble levels on our sights were good and that our arrows were all shooting pretty similar. But overall, it's only as serious as you make it.
Yeah, and that was last year, right?
Yep.
We're not preparing nearly that much this year because last spring we had a lot of extra time to practice.
We're definitely going to go in a little bit colder, and I think that's okay. Just understand your limits when you're doing it, and go out there to have fun.
Right. And I mean, understand that it's a 3D shoot, so you're shooting at targets, and it's nothing that's make or break or life or death if you're not comfortable 100% with the shots. So it's definitely just kind of a practice event and just a way to build your confidence for either further target shooting or for real life scenarios. But
yeah, it is what you make it. So practice as much as you want, but it's probably good to at least shoot a little bit before you go, because I think that'll make it an overall better experience.
Yeah, well, and the courses have a range, right? So if you're doing the easiest course, the furthest target is 40 yards maybe?
No, it was more like 60.
Was it like on the easiest one? Okay. But there's like 1 or 2 of them that are that far.
Right.
The majority of them on the easiest course were like 30 yards.
Yeah, 30, 40. And they do help you out a little bit where the farther away targets are generally larger targets, and so there's more margin for error there.
Yeah, so you can always, just register or do the easiest courses. And then I would say just practice up to that range that course is. So that being said, the knock-on course goes out to like 98 yards. We were not practicing at 98 yards.
Yeah.
So there's an element of, depending on what course you register or choose to do, you can kind of gear your practice towards that.
Yep. Okay, so to close, we just want to share some final thoughts about why you should shoot a Total Archery Challenge event, and then just some hot tips and things to finish out. And so I guess I'll start with a tip, or at least speak to where we stayed. We stayed in Airbnbs in both places. Now there are some kind of secret-ish camping type things that you can investigate and find out, but I think an Airbnb is a pretty safe choice at a reasonable price. And so
you could also stay at the resorts too. We just found Airbnb to be a more affordable option.
Yeah, and you have a full kitchen and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
A little bit more space. And the ones we stayed at were close enough. We didn't really have any issues with like parking or walking there or anything like that.
Right.
So
we found Total Archery Challenge a lot of fun and also helpful. And so we mentioned that, you're taking long shots that you won't be taking on animals in real life. However, I have found personally, and I think you would agree, that shooting at these long distances under challenging conditions just increases your confidence and your capability at shorter ranges where you might actually be shooting at a live animal if you hunt. Now, this is an archery event. That doesn't mean that you automatically hunt, and so you just want to increase your proficiency regardless. But it's amazing how when you're shooting at 60 yards, if you move back to 25 yards, the target seems to be gigantic.
Right.
And you're holding steadier and your form is good, and I think it just makes it easier at those shorter distances. The other thing about shooting at longer distances is it does seem to extrapolate and highlight any issues that you have with your form. And so, an inch off at 20 yards is fine, but over the course of 60, 70, 80, 100 yards, that's going to move to feet off. And so if you're consistently missing, one way or the other at that sort of range, it could highlight a mistake that you can work on fixing to improve your accuracy and your proficiency at shorter ranges. And so overall confidence and making you better at shorter ranges, I think, is something that comes out of Total Archery Challenge and preparing for Total Archery Challenge that's beneficial and a reason that you should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that because I have not hunted. I'm not a hunter. But like I said, I just started shooting maybe like 2 years ago. And so, an event like this is still fun and it builds my confidence to one day maybe be out in the field and taking more comfortable and more confident and better shots at live animals if I get to that place.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking about confidence, these events, they can shake your confidence a little bit. And so you're showing up, there's people who have all of the newest, nicest stuff.
Yep.
And they look pretty serious. Yep. And they're with all of their bros, and they're on the range, and they're kind of...
taking up space.
Yeah,
they're there.
Yeah. And
they're noticeable.
You're automatically making yourself, or you're making comparisons to these other individuals who look serious and are shooting the hardest courses and, are taking 100-yard shots on the range to try and win a truck. And just be confident in that situation. This is a fun event. You're not taking score. When you're coming down the mountain, you're shooting in your own little group.
Yeah,
and so
they
don't even matter. So essentially it's just on the range and it's just visuals, really. But don't let that shake you. Just be confident. Go to the range, shoot a 40-yard shot to make sure your pins are okay.
Yep.
And then move forward from there and have fun.
Yeah, because you belong there too. And that was something I think we both felt at both of these events, that we were kind of like small fish in a big pond sort of deal. And, we don't have the nicest stuff or the newest stuff or whatever. But, you belong there too. And like you said, you're kind of in your own little group or your own little... I mean, the whole time we were shooting, it was pretty much just you and I. Sometimes there's groups behind you, but it's all good.
Yeah, it's for fun. And so be confident, be yourself, bring your patience because you could be waiting on some of these shots.
Yep.
And so be patient with other people. because they're all out there to have fun the same as you.
Yeah.
So the other thing, because it's a fun shoot, you're spending a lot of time essentially just hiking between targets. And so although we were both shooting, we saw people that had people just hiking with them. And I think that'd be a pretty neat way to bring your friend or a family member or something, because it is just a hike in the mountains. You just happen to be shooting. And so if you don't have anyone to shoot with, bring a friend. It's a cool way for them to get introduced to archery, which is a bonus. You're spending time together and you're hiking outside in creation in the mountains or on a ski hill or wherever.
Yeah. And
it would just be a good way to have a little bit of company to shoot. Now, with that said, go shoot by yourself.
Yeah, we saw people shooting by themselves and they would just kind of introduce themselves and integrate into another group sometimes. But otherwise, just out there shooting by themselves too. It's a fun time. And we're all about just spending time outside being kind of the point of it all. So
yeah, and we're not professionals, obviously. We have issues with our form and issues with this and that.
I mean, if you watch the videos, you can tell we're not professionals. But that being said, there are things looking back on those that we're going to do differently this year. Working on our setups and stuff like that. And maybe you want to do a whole other thing on that. But there's definitely things that we're changing going into this year, but it's still fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's only as serious as you make it. You don't have to make it that serious, really. And I think it's worth it for a number of these different reasons that we highlighted. And coming away, I think it'll be a good experience. I think it's worth the money, and I think it's worth the time to do. And so that's why we wanted to kind of share this video to encourage other people like us to go out there and give it a shot, because it is fun. In essence, just to close, be confident, be patient, go have fun and go do it, because there's a lot of reasons that you'll come away, I think, feeling better than when you went in, especially in regards to your shot confidence and overall ability with archery. And so with that, I think that's about it. I think that's all we wanted to say. We just wanted to share our feelings before some of these Total Archery events and just encourage you to go out and try it, because we were a little bit anxious about it, but I think we're very glad that we did it, and we're doing it again this year. And so... Yeah, and you can check out all the videos from last year. I'm sure you'll link them in the description. But check out them, and they give, a little bit more detail and visuals of what to expect and stuff like that. But... yeah, it's a fun time. Go out and do it. So for that, thanks for watching. Yep. If you want to see us out on the mountain this year, subscribe. And we'll make a video and make sure that we share our experiences from this year as well. So thanks for watching, and until next time, we appreciate you. Action. Ready? If you are. Go ahead. You start. I didn't sign up for this. Okay. Ready? Yeah. Okay. Oh no, I'm really bad at this. We haven't even started. I know, but every time I do something like this, I just laugh. It's okay to laugh. Okay. Oh no. Okay. I'm ready. Okay. Are you gonna start? Don't do that. Don't do that. Just start. Okay.